Right then, big deal today with regards to Manchester City and their case against the Premier League and the tribunal there. Stevie, what do you... Oh, sorry. Jules, Jules, can you just explain in very simple terms what's going on here and what are the ramifications of it?
Yeah, to try to make it simple, because it's quite complicated and I'm not sure if it's the end of it, because right now both the Premier League and Manchester City said they've won this case, which is technically impossible. Nobody, it's either one winner and one loser, but two winners is very difficult. Basically, the Premier League a few months ago blocked 2 sponsorship deals going to Manchester City from companies also owned basically by Abu Dhabi. Let's put it simply in that way. And the Premier League is saying, hang on, you can't receive money as a football club from people who share the same owners as you. This is not fair, and this is not how you do things. So we know already there was rules in place for that. We have the same at PSG, for example, same at Newcastle. When a state that owns you also owns other companies, those companies can't sponsor your club with an amount of money that is overvalued, if you see what I mean. So the Premier League blocked those 2 deals, and Manchester City felt that was unfair, and obviously took them to court. And today, court and the tribunal recognized that the Premier League was not allowed, basically, to block those 2 sponsorship deals, that even if it's the same owners, if a company X wants to sponsor company Y, like somebody wants to sponsor a football club, then they are allowed to do it even if they share the same owner. Basically, this is very simply put.
What I suppose people most care about, Jules, is how does this affect all those charges that Manchester City are facing, where, of course, if they're found guilty, they could face extreme measures like relegation?
Yeah, this is a completely different case than the 115 charges that the Premier League is still, that the Commission is still going through. But the way people are seeing it here in England is that in this battle between Manchester City and the Premier League, which the 115 charges is the pinnacle of it, if you want, that City have won this first set, if you want, if it was a tennis game, a tennis match, and that in this first battle, which is a much more not meaningless, because it's quite important, but nowhere near as important as the massive case, the case of the century with all those charges, that City have got one over the Premier League on that one, and that maybe this is a good omen for the big case of the 115 charges. That's certainly how it's been reported. On paper, it is true that City won that case, really, and the Premier League are now saying, well, we haven't really lost it, but we're going to change the rules, and there's an emergency Premier League meetings with all 20 clubs for next week now to see what kind of adjustment they can make to the rules about those third-party ownership, like, for example, the APT. But yeah, Manchester City feels very much, I think, vindicated by winning the case today.
Manchester City, of course, go into the international break off the back of quite the game against Fulham. They had it far from their own way. A 3-2 victory in the end, though, for Pep Guardiola's side. For more on this, Mario's with us. But, Nedum, I want to start with you. It was incredible that you saw that foot race, obviously, between Traore and Kyle Walker play out in the second half.
But Traore, having played against him, that's the thing. His burst is as good as anybody in the league, which is so surprising given the fact that he's so big as well. So for Kyle to see that and to feel that sort of acceleration on his back, it's a very, very rare occurrence for him to see someone that can accelerate quicker than him. And when you saw that, I'm sure he's going to, at some point, everyone in their career gets burnt. And I think for Kyle Walker to feel it, I'm sure that's going to make him defend in a different way from this point forward. Because from once you feel it, listen, it's a whole different sport now for him, a whole different sport. But it's good to see that, he is still being tested and he's not perfect. He is quick. But it's the Premier League and lots of other players are quick as well, and we can see that on the weekend.
Nedum, you famously did 100 metres in 10 seconds. How are you getting on in that race between those two?
Well, me right now, I'm beating both of them. As a 37-year-old who still does track out, dust both of them, no dramas whatsoever. Yeah, with the hoodie over my head. But yeah, this is the thing. From when I started playing, the Opta-stats and stuff in terms of speed, they weren't really a thing. It's obviously coming later, further down, but by the time I was making my debut, I was 2 years removed from doing athletics, so I really wasn't one of the slow ones at all. But for Kyle and all those other people, if you really want to learn about who's quick in the league, look at those Opta-stats, because some of the names you see in that top 5 and top 10 might surprise a lot of people, but it's just a reminder that how physically demanding and how quick people are in the Premier League, because it could be absolutely anyone.
Is Traore the fastest person you've ever come up against within that short space on the pitch, Nedum?
It's actually, he was acceleration, but top speed and to fair acceleration as well. I think some of you might remember, do you remember Dennis Romadal? I think he played for Charlton. He was rapid. Yeah, he was like ridiculously fast.
I think Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he was like unbelievably fast. And what Nedum said, you know, like moments like this happen to everybody. You know, once you're gonna have a moment in your career that you go like, wow, this is serious speed. Fortunate Ronaldo wasn't it, but every time we talk what I highlighted, I would run right before him. So one thing he could never be with me, he could never be offside because I'll make sure he was on, but I'll make sure I was gone already because he was always onside because I would be running fast. No, he was good.
How old was Michael Owen when he did you?
I think he was 17.
Nice.
He was a little rapid.
You would just say you turn around and that was it. That was
I had him. In my brain, I had him.
Right. And what happened?
Well, then I was looking for him. I had no idea where he was. And then I turned around and he was gone. He was absolutely gone and the ball was in the back of the net. And
then you came here.
And then I came here, yeah.
Beautiful. Overall, Nedum, obviously, you look at it and you look at this game and it's a victory for City, but so many caveats within it.
And that City side, the balance hasn't quite been right yet, and I could make a case that this international break is coming at the right time for Guardiola. Maybe not for his players who, won't get the time on the training pitch with him, but I think for him to look at that game and have that as a reminder about how tough the league is and how he's probably going to have to make 1 or 2 tweaks going into the next stage of the season if he wants to be defensively more solid than he has been in that last game.
Can I just say, though, I agree with Nedum that, yes, speed terrifies, and certainly terrifies Manchester City because of the way that they play. But in that second chance for Adama Traore, where he hits it over the bar, it wasn't just the speed. There was a lack of recovery effort from Manchester City. Because when they lose the ball well deep in their attacking half. And as the ball gets played forward, Alex Iwobi starts running, and nobody's tracking him. And look, I know he's got speed, but you don't see an actual sprint being made from Manchester City players to put themselves in a position where they can track the play and they can properly defend the play. So much so that Iwobi takes an additional touch, and as he's falling over, now he passes the ball to Adama Traore, and there's still no Manchester City tracking players or trailing players actually in a position in which they can defend. So while, yes, speed kills, and speed kills Manchester City, I also think there's a call here for Pep Guardiola to make and say, listen, we're going to be aggressive in the attack, but when it's time to track back, you got to give me a sprint first and get yourself in a defensive position.
But if you don't have players that are capable of keeping up with that, then there's nothing you can do.
Right.
I mean, at one point, there were blue jerseys, and then all of a sudden they were going backwards. I think that's more to do with not having pace. I mean, in the middle of the park, who did he have? Kovacic? He's not pacey. Gundogan, he's not pacey. I mean, sometimes there's not a lot you can do.
No, I understand that, Stevie, but in that sequence in particular, it wasn't full sprint. What I would want to see is full sprint first, and then give me the jog once you get in a defensive position. Right. And what I'm seeing from Manchester City in those sort of plays, there are a lot of players that are giving you the jog first, and once they see themselves in a position in which they get panicky, now we're going to sprint. It should be the other way around.
Mario?
Yeah, but I also feel like, like we tapped into Rodri not playing. Rodri is a kid that controls the game defensively and attacking-wise. But if you put Kovacic or Gundogan there, you have footballer's brain. But you don't have the brain of like the ones that have to break the play. Because that's not their natural, gifted style of playing. So I think this is one of the pockets where it's going to be really important for them to see how they're going to pace the game. Because now every break almost, Silva was really smart, because he knew that if I break, I need to have the power and speed in my team that is capable to go beyond them. Because he knew what was going to happen. Because he knew that he had to wait a couple of minutes to get the ball or waiting. And there were moments as well where Fulham had the ball, especially in the second half. They controlled. I was like, wow, is City allowing them to do that? It was just a moment where they couldn't get to them because Fulham was really keeping the ball and moving around really smart. But one of the key things is, I tell you, Guardiola is going to have to think about who is going to dictate the middle of the park for me defensively. Because Rodri could do both. He could attack and he could break the play.
But see, that goes back to what we were talking about with Upamecano and Kim. I keep talking about starting position, decision making, and that's exactly the same thing in the middle of the park as it is at the back. If you don't have the legs, when teams get past you to get back, then you have to make sure that your starting position is correct so that you can actually either win the ball or, at the worst, hold the play up to let people get back.